My husband left me stranded at the airport and walked away. 7 days later, he returned home and asked the housekeeper, "Is my wife still not home?" The housekeeper's answer sent chills down his spine and made his legs give out. The wind at O'Hare International Airport at night was as piercing as needles. The bitter December chill of Chicago was nothing like the crisp, sweet cold of Paris. It was damp, creeping through every layer of my wool coat and seeping straight into my bones. I stood shivering next to my ash-gray suitcase, my eyes glued to the endless stream of cars gliding past the arrivals terminal. The watch on my wrist indicated it was past 11 p.m. A 12-hour delayed flight had left my body exhausted, but the physical fatigue was nothing compared to the anxious thumping in my chest. Before I boarded the plane, Kevin had firmly promised he would pick me up. He had said, "What kind of husband wouldn't miss his wife after she's been away on a business trip for a month?" Those words, though I knew they were likely just lip service, still offered a fragile ray of hope to a 30-year-old woman like me who had grown accustomed to loneliness within her own home for the past 3 years. I believed him, or rather, I forced myself to believe him. The phone in my coat pocket buzzed with a dry, hollow vibration. I hastily pulled it out, my fingers so numb from the cold I nearly dropped it. It was a text from Kevin. "Sudden client dinner came up. Grab an Uber home." 8 words. No explanation, no asking if I had landed safely, no asking if I was tired. The phone screen lit up and then faded into the dark night, stark and isolated exactly like my marriage right now. I stared at the text. I didn't cry, nor did I feel the raging anger I had felt in the past. Strangely, my heart was terrifyingly calm. When disappointment hits rock bottom, a person simply has no strength left to be heartbroken. I knew exactly what kind of client Kevin was entertaining at this hour. A yellow cab pulled up. An older driver popped his head out, his thick Chicago accent full of concern. "Need a ride, miss? Standing out here in this freezing weather, you're gonna catch a cold. Where's your husband? Why are you out here all alone?" The driver's unintentional questions hit me like a bucket of ice water, snapping me out of the last lingering illusion I had holding on to. Where was my husband? My husband was busy wrapping his arms around another woman in some warm, cozy room, leaving his wife to freeze in the dead of winter. I dragged my suitcase and got into the cab. The heat from the vents blew against my face, but it couldn't thaw the ice in my heart. "Take me to the Lake Forest Estates, please." I hesitated. Go back there for what? To face 4 cold walls, to eat cold dinners, and to wait for the sound of my husband's car pulling into the driveway at dawn, reeking of cheap perfume? That house had long ceased to be a home. It was a gilded cage that imprisoned my youth and my foolish endurance. "Sir, change of plans. Take me to the River North condos, please." That was where Mia, my best friend, lived. I took out my phone and looked at the lock screen one last time. It was a photo from our wedding 3 years ago. In the picture, I was smiling radiantly, and Kevin looked dashing and elegant. Everyone who looked at us said I had hit the jackpot, marrying a handsome, talented, and wealthy heir. But who knew that for the past 3 years, I had lived like a ghost by his side? I was obedient, enduring, fulfilling my duties as a perfect daughter-in-law. I even turned a blind eye to my husband's casual flings just to maintain a facade of peace. But tonight, that obedient woman was dead. I popped out my phone's SIM card. The tiny piece of plastic rested in the palm of my hand. If I just threw it away or hid it, I would cut off all contact with Kevin's world. It was a crazy but incredibly tempting thought. Disappear. I wanted to see if I disappeared, would Kevin even notice? Would he feel a shred of worry, or would he secretly celebrate being rid of a burden? "You should call your family, miss. If your phone is off, they'll be worried sick," the driver reminded me, looking through the rearview mirror. "No one is waiting for me, sir," I replied lightly. I dropped the SIM card into a hidden pocket in my purse and powered the phone down completely. The cab drove down the Kennedy Expressway. The yellow streetlights cast long, shimmering reflections on the dark river. I leaned my head against the window, watching the city fade behind me. Tonight, I was no longer Chloe Mitchell, the submissive wife of the vice president of Solaris Corporation. Tonight, I was just me, an abandoned woman looking for an escape route. When I reached Mia's door, I rang the bell frantically. Mia opened it, still in her bear-patterned pajamas, her face groggy with sleep. But the moment she saw me standing there with a massive suitcase and a pale-as-a-sheet face, she snapped wide awake. "Chloe? What the hell are you doing here at this hour? Where is your husband?" I didn't answer. My legs gave out. The biting cold from the airport seemed to finally take its toll on me. I collapsed into Mia's arms. Before my consciousness faded into darkness, I only managed to whisper, "I'm so tired, Mia. Let me hide here for a few days. Don't tell anyone I'm here." I woke up with a burning fever. My throat felt like it was on fire, and my head pounded like a drum. The familiar scent of lemongrass essential oil in Mia's apartment brought me a sense of safety. Looking out the window, it was broad daylight. I had been asleep for God knows how long. Mia walked into the room, carrying a steaming bowl of chicken noodle soup. Seeing my eyes open, she set the bowl on the nightstand, felt my forehead, and scolded me. "You scared me to death. Your fever was almost 104 degrees. You were delirious, cursing out your bastard of a husband in your sleep. Eat some soup to get your strength back." I struggled to sit up and took the bowl. How long was I asleep? 2 days. Your phone has been off for 2 days. I didn't dare turn it on because I was afraid of GPS tracking. But guess what? No one is looking for you. Not a single soul. My heart clenched. 2 days. A wife goes missing for 2 days, doesn't come home, doesn't call. Yet her husband is completely oblivious. Or maybe he knew, but just didn't care. "I'm guessing Kevin went on a business trip, didn't he?" I said. Mia looked at me sympathetically, hesitating before handing me her iPad. "Eat first, then look. I'm afraid you'll pass out again and I'll have to deal with it. I can handle it." "Hand it over." On the screen was the Instagram profile of a woman named Natalie. Photos taken at a luxury resort in Cabo San Lucas assaulted my eyes. The timestamps matched the exact moment I was shivering at O'Hare Airport. In the photos, Natalie was wearing a bikini, holding a glass of wine. At the edge of the frame, a familiar masculine shoulder was visible. The Patek Philippe watch on the man's wrist, it was the anniversary gift I had given Kevin last year. The caption read, "A warm winter getaway with my love. Thank you for everything, baby." "The private investigator I hired per your delirious, fever-induced requests found this," Mia said. "I didn't expect you to be so lucid while burning up. You kept grabbing my hand, telling me to hire someone to investigate him." I let out a distorted, bitter laugh. It turned out that subconsciously, I had already stopped trusting Kevin. He said he was meeting a client. It turned out the client was in his bed. I scrolled down through more intimate photos, wire transfer receipts, receipts for designer bags, and expensive jewelry that the PI had managed to photograph and email to Mia. The total amount Kevin had spent on his mistress during this trip was nearly $50,000. Meanwhile, he constantly complained to me that the company was facing hard times and we needed to budget. He forced me to cut down on household expenses. I remembered the times I hesitated to buy a simple bottle of moisturizer, or when I sat hand-sewing a button back onto his suit jacket to save on tailoring costs. My sacrifices, my frugality, it was all just so he could funnel money to pamper someone else. The anger didn't explode like a raging fire. It was a cold, razor-sharp blade slicing through my insides. I put the iPad down and picked up the soup. Every spoonful tasted incredibly bitter, but I forced myself to swallow. I had to get healthy. I couldn't wither away in this misery. "Mia, do me a favor. Name it. I've got your back. I need all this evidence printed out. And contact Attorney Quinn for me. I want to prepare for a war." The next few days passed in the silence of the condo, but inside my head, a massive storm was brewing. I didn't turn on my phone. I lived like a ghost, watching my husband's life unfold through the daily PI reports. On the third day, Kevin and Natalie went shopping at a high-end mall. He smiled so brightly, a smile I hadn't seen directed at me in ages. On the fourth day, they went to a manifestation retreat. How ironic, an adulterer praying for good fortune. On the fifth day, Kevin took Natalie to view a luxury condo. The deposit contract was in her name, With every piece of information that came back, my heart grew a little more calloused. The initial pain slowly morphed into absolute contempt. I looked at the man I once loved with all my heart. He had revealed his true colors as an utterly deceptive, worthless scumbag. By the 6th day, Kevin still hadn't returned to Chicago. He had completely forgotten my existence. He probably thought I was throwing a tantrum, locking myself in the master bedroom of our Lake Forest mansion like I usually did. He was too confident in my docile, submissive nature. He thought I was a porcelain doll in a display case, place me somewhere, and I'd sit there, too scared to rebel. But today, that porcelain doll was shattered. Chloe, Attorney Quinn said this evidence is more than enough for you to win the case. But are you sure? Kevin's family is extremely powerful. His dad won't let this slide easily. I looked at Mia, my eyes resolute. I have nothing left to lose, Mia. My youth, my love, my trust, I've lost it all. Now, I just want my dignity and what belongs to me. On the 7th day, I sat by the window that morning, watching the weak winter sunlight hit the high rises. A strange sense of anticipation rose within me. Today was the day Kevin had to attend the Solaris Corporation's annual gala. Per tradition, he needed his wife by his side to maintain the image of a happy family. That would be the moment he returned home. And that would be the moment he realized the house had been empty for a whole week. I pictured Kevin's face. Would it be panic or anger? Martha is calling. Mia handed me her phone. I had told my housekeeper, Martha, to call Mia if anything happened. Martha was the only person I trusted in that house. I signaled Mia to put it on speaker. Martha's voice trembled with fear. Miss Mia, Mr. Kevin is home. He's tearing the house apart. He just collapsed on the floor. I signaled Mia to stay quiet and opened the security camera app on my phone. I had secretly installed a tiny hidden camera in the living room a few months ago when I first started sensing red flags. I never thought I'd use it to witness a scene like this. On the screen, the living room of the Lake Forest mansion was in crisp HD. Kevin stood in the middle of the room, his expensive suit wrinkled, his suitcase tossed carelessly in a corner. His face was beet red, either from alcohol or from the fury burning inside him. Where is Chloe? I asked you. Where is my wife? Is she still sleeping at this hour? Get her down here right now. We're going to be late for the gala. His screaming through the phone's speaker was deafening. Martha stood huddled in the corner, wringing her hands, shaking uncontrollably. She was an honest woman who loved me like her own daughter, which was why she had covered for me all week. Whenever Kevin called the landline, she told him I was sleeping or in the shower. But now, she couldn't hide it anymore. Sir? Spit it out. Call her down here. Is she throwing another fit because I didn't bring her a gift from my business trip? You women are so damn annoying. Kevin loosened his tie, his face full of arrogant impatience. He was still absolutely certain I was upstairs, playing hard to get, waiting to be coaxed. The condescending habit of a man holding all the cards made him oblivious to any red flags. Sir, Mrs. Mitchell is not upstairs. What? Where did she go? Grocery shopping? To her parents? Kevin stopped, his eyebrows furrowing. No, sir. Ever since the night you went to pick up your client, she hasn't come home. Martha gathered all her courage to look up at her boss. The space on the screen seemed to freeze. I saw the absolute shock wash over Kevin's face. He stood rooted to the spot, his eyes wide, staring blankly at the housekeeper. What did you say? Repeat that. Kevin's voice dropped to an eerie, chilling whisper. Sir, she didn't come home that night. I waited up until morning, but nothing. I called her phone and it went straight to voicemail. She hasn't been home for a single minute for the past 7 days. I thought you knew. I thought she went with you. A dry, shattering sound echoed as Kevin swung his arm, knocking an antique ceramic vase off its pedestal. It smashed into pieces. He lunged forward, grabbing Martha by the collar, roaring, Why are you only telling me this now? Why didn't you call me? You never called the house. Your phone was off the whole time. I couldn't reach you. Kevin let go of Martha, stumbling backward. He whipped out his phone, his trembling fingers dialing a number. I knew he was calling me, but that SIM card was sitting cold in my purse, miles away. The number you have dialed is unavailable. I watched panic begin to consume Kevin. It wasn't the worry of a loving husband. It was the terror of a man losing control of the narrative. He sprinted up the stairs, barged into the bedroom, then ran down to the kitchen, searching everywhere like a wounded animal. No one was there. The house was empty. Kevin returned to the living room, all the blood drained from his face. He remembered that night, the freezing winter night at the airport. He had abandoned me there to go pick up Natalie. He had assumed I would just take an Uber home, go back to cooking dinner in the kitchen, and wait for him to toss me some leftover scraps of affection. But I didn't come home. A weak woman with no cash, because I always used his supplementary card, which showed zero activity this past week. I had no relatives in Chicago, my parents had passed away, and my extended family lived out of state. Where could she go? An accident? Kidnapped? Suicide? That thought seemed to flash through Kevin's mind, making his legs turn to jelly. He staggered and collapsed onto his knees on the hardwood floor, right next to the shattered ceramic shards. He clutched his head with both hands, messing up his perfectly styled hair. Impossible. That's impossible, he muttered. Watching the man break down on the screen, a surge of vindication mixed with bitterness rose in my chest. Are you scared? Are you scared of losing the obedient pawn who makes you look good to the world, who takes care of your aging parents, who manages the home front so you have the freedom to cheat? Or are you scared that your father, a man who values family reputation more than his own life, will kill you if he finds out you let your wife go missing? Whatever the reason, his pathetic state was well-deserved. Mia's phone rang. It was Kevin's number. Mia looked at me, raising an eyebrow. Answer it? Answer it. Put it on speaker. I nodded, my voice completely calm. Mia cleared her throat and answered with a grumpy attitude. Hello? Why do you keep calling me? Mia, is Chloe with you? Kevin yelled into the phone, his voice cracking with panic. Which Chloe? She's your wife. You should know where she is. Why are you asking me? Mia's acting was flawless. Don't screw with me. The housekeeper says she hasn't been home for a week. Has she contacted you? What? Chloe is missing. What kind of husband are you? Your wife has been missing for 7 days, and you're just looking for her now. Oh my God. If anything happens to my best friend, I will end you. Shut up. If she contacts you, tell her to come home immediately. I won't be mad. Just tell her to come home. Kevin snapped, but his trembling voice betrayed his fear. I don't know where she is. I thought she was on a business trip with you. You are a piece of trash. Mia hung up. She turned to me, laughing wickedly. How was my acting? Scared the living daylights out of him. I didn't laugh. I looked back at the camera feed. Kevin was still sitting on the floor, but now he was calling his assistant, screaming at him to start checking hospitals and morgues. It was time to end this game of hide and seek. I didn't want to skulk around like a criminal anymore. I was the victim, and I was going to step into the light with my head held high. Mia, get ready. He's going to remember your apartment soon. He'll show up here eventually. You're going to see him? I have to. Let's see how long he can play the worried husband role when faced with this. I stood up, smoothing the wrinkles in my shirt, and picked up the stack of photos from the table. My eyes were cold and sharp. The doorbell rang frantically, accompanied by violent pounding, as if someone was trying to break the wooden door down. Kevin had arrived faster than I expected. Fear had evidently given him wings to fly from Lake Forest to River North. I took a breath, not to calm myself, but to suppress the rising disgust. I nodded at Mia. Open the door. As soon as the wooden door cracked open, Kevin burst in like a tornado. He looked incredibly pathetic. His tie was crooked, his hair a mess, and his eyes were bloodshot. When his gaze locked onto me, sitting calmly on the sofa, his whole body froze. In that fraction of a second, I clearly saw a wave of relief wash over his face, but it was instantly replaced by his familiar, explosive rage. His patriarchal instincts kicked in stronger than ever. He stormed over, pointed a finger directly in my face, and roared, "What the hell is wrong with you? Do you know I was going crazy looking for you? You turned your phone off, abandoned our house for 7 days to hide here? Are you trying to turn my life upside down?" His screams echoed in Mia's small living room. If this were the old Chloe, I would have shrunk back, lowered my head, apologized, and muttered an excuse. But today, I just sat there, my back perfectly straight, lifting a cup of chamomile tea and taking a small sip. The slight bitterness on my tongue sharpened my focus. "Why were you looking for me?" I asked. My voice was icy, completely devoid of emotion. Kevin stopped dead at my attitude. He had never seen me like this. In his eyes, I was always the docile wife who did as she was told. This cold defiance confused and enraged him further. "You're asking me why? Today is the corporate gala. My parents are waiting at the house. Go home, change your clothes, and come with me right now. I'll deal with you running away later." He reached out to grab my wrist and drag me away. I swatted his hand away forcefully. The sharp movement caused the tea to spill. A few drops of hot water landed on the back of my hand, but I didn't feel the pain. "I'm not going anywhere. And I am no longer your wife to be ordered around." Kevin's eyes bugged out. "What did you just say? Are you out of your mind? Or did you listen to Mia's toxic advice? Go home right now." Mia stood leaning against the wall, her arms crossed, smirking. "Hey, Kevin. Don't come into my house and act like a thug. My best friend is not a toy for you to throw away at the airport when you're bored and drag back to display when you need her." Kevin glared at Mia. "This is between me and my wife. Stay out of it." "Sit down," I commanded. My voice wasn't loud, but it carried enough authority that Kevin turned back to look at me. I set the teacup on the table. The clink of porcelain against glass sounded dry and sharp. I said, "Sit down. We need to have a clear conversation. You want to deal with me? Fine. Today, we are going to settle everything. Fair and square." Kevin begrudgingly sat down in the chair across from me. He loosened his tie, exhaling loudly, trying to feign patience. "Fine. Say what you have to say and make it quick. I don't have time." I looked at him, the man I once called my husband. Looking at him now, he felt so alien, so repulsive. I took the thick dossier Mia had printed and slid it gently across the table toward him. "Look at this. Look at it very carefully." Kevin glanced at the folder, his face full of suspicion. He picked it up and flipped to the first page. A photo of him and Natalie passionately kissing in the lobby of a luxury hotel in Cabo San Lucas hit him square in the eyes. Kevin's face changed colors from beet red to stark white to a sickly gray. His hands trembled violently. He rapidly flipped through the next pages. Wire transfers, shopping bags, photos at the spiritual retreat, the condo deposit contract under Natalie's name. Everything was crystal clear, detailed down to the exact date and time. He looked up at me, his eyes wide with sheer terror. He never expected that while he was drunk on romance, the wife he left at home had tracked his every single move. You had me followed." I gave a cold smile. "You don't need to use the word followed. I was just checking to see how hard my husband was working on his business trip. It turns out your business was in bed with your mistress. It turns out the important client you abandoned your wife in the freezing winter night for was her." Kevin threw the folder onto the table, desperately trying to regain his fake composure. "Chloe, listen to me. It's not what you think. She really is a business partner. Those photos are just bad angles, and the money was an advance for a project." I burst out laughing, cutting off his pathetic excuses. "Do you think I'm a 3-year-old? Or do you think my brain is just for decoration? Bad angles, but your lips are locked together? An advance for a project, but you buy her Hermes bags and a condo in her name. Don't insult my intelligence." Kevin fell silent. He knew he couldn't deny it anymore. The naked truth was laid bare right in front of him. So, he switched tactics from denial to sheer audacity. He leaned back in his chair, crossed his legs, and put on a nonchalant face. "So what? Men go out and play around sometimes. It's totally normal. As long as I come home and give you money for groceries, that's what matters. Why are you making a huge deal out of this? Are you trying to destroy this family? The person who destroyed this family is you, not me." I looked straight into his eyes, every word striking like a hammer hitting a nail. "I do not accept sharing a husband. And I do not accept a husband who treats his wife like garbage. You abandoned me at the airport without a single text to see if I was dead or alive. You went on vacation with your mistress, while I was bedridden here with a fever. Did you actually think I would forgive you? Kevin scoffed. If you don't forgive me, what are you going to do? Divorce me? Think about it carefully. What do you have? The house belongs to my parents. The money is what I earned. You are just a freeloader. If you leave me, how will you survive? Go back to your hometown and flip burgers? His words stabbed directly into my pride like a knife. For the past 3 years, to be a solid foundation for him, I had paused my rising career as a fashion designer to become a homemaker. I had sacrificed everything, only to be deemed a useless freeloader by him. You are mistaken, Kevin. I stood up, walked over to Mia's desk, and brought back another piece of paper. I placed it on the table. I don't need your money. I have my own 2 hands and my own brain, but everything that I contributed to over the last 3 years, I am taking back, down to the last cent, and most importantly, I want my freedom. It was a divorce petition I had already signed. Kevin looked at the divorce papers. A calculating glint flashed in his eyes. He didn't tear it up like I thought he would. Instead, he picked it up, examined it carefully, and then smiled a sinister smile. You want a divorce? Fine. I'm sick of your miserable, long face anyway. But if you want to walk, you walk away with nothing. Don't expect to take a single dime from the Mitchell family. He pulled a pen from his suit pocket and scribbled his signature on the papers. His action was so swift, it made me shudder. It turned out he had been preparing for this for a long time. He just needed an excuse. Done. Now get out of my life. Kevin stood up, adjusted his suit jacket, looking triumphant like a burden had just been lifted. He turned to leave. Hold on. My voice rang out like steel. You think signing is the end of it. You think I'm going to walk out of your house empty-handed after everything you've done to me. Kevin turned around, frowning. What else do you want? Half of all marital assets acquired during our marriage, plus compensation for emotional distress. If not, this stack of photos will be on your father's desk, and on the front page of TMZ tomorrow morning. You know what your father hates the most. What will he do when he finds out his precious son stained the family name? And what will happen to Solaris Corporation's stock when the vice president's cheating scandal blows up? Kevin's face darkened instantly. He knew I had hit his fatal weak point. He gritted his teeth, looking at me like he wanted to eat me alive. You dare threaten me? I'm not threatening you. I'm negotiating. I met his gaze without flinching. This war has just begun. Kevin glared at me, his chest heaving with anger, but he didn't dare act recklessly. He knew full well that I meant what I said. For 3 years of marriage, he thought I was meek, but he forgot that even a worm will turn if stepped on too hard. Furthermore, what was backing me now wasn't an empty void, but an ironclad determination. He took a deep breath, tried to calm himself, and his attitude changed with dizzying speed. From aggressive and threatening, he switched to the haggling tone of a sleazy salesman. Okay, Chloe, we are husband and wife. Let's keep this behind closed doors. There's no need to drag my parents or the press into this and embarrass us both. He pulled out his chair and sat back down. His voice softened, but sounded entirely fake. I know I was wrong. I'm sorry for what happened that day. But you have to understand, all men have their moments of weakness. I promise I'll end it with her. As for the divorce, if you really want it, I'll agree. But splitting the assets 50-50 is absurd. I built everything. You just stayed home. What did you contribute to demand half? I looked at him, feeling nauseous at his sheer audacity. Is running a home not labor? Who cooked every meal and made sure you slept well? Who took care of your parents when they were sick while you were out entertaining clients? Who managed that massive mansion so you could focus on your career? How much would you pay a full-time butler a month? Meanwhile, I was your wife, your daughter-in-law, your unpaid estate manager for 3 years. Does my value not translate to money? Kevin waved his hand, looking annoyed. All right, stop listing your merits. I know you worked hard. How about this? I'll give you $2 million. Consider it compensation for your time. You take that money, buy a small condo to live in, and maybe open a little boutique or something to survive. That's more than generous. $2 million. He was pricing 3 years of my youth and my dignity at $2 million. That amount wasn't even enough to cover the Hermes bags he bought his mistress in a single week. I burst out laughing. A cold, chilling sound in the room. 2 million? Do you think I'm a beggar? Or do you think I sold my body to you for 3 years for such a cheap price? Then how much do you want? Don't be greedy. Kevin began to lose his patience. 200 million. I stated the number clearly and articulately. Kevin jumped up like he had been electrocuted. Are you insane? Are you delusional? 200 million? Even if I sold you, you wouldn't be worth that much. Your assets include your shares in Solaris, the real estate in your name, and your other investments. The total value is no less than $500 million. By state law, I am entitled to half. Me demanding 200 million is already giving you a discount, I calmly listed. Over the last 7 days, I hadn't just laid in bed crying. I had Attorney Quinn meticulously audit all of Kevin's assets. The numbers I held in my hand were accurate to the cent. Kevin's face turned pale. He never expected I would know his finances so intimately. He always thought I was blind to business, only knowing how to spend pocket change. You investigated my assets? I am your wife. I have the right to know. Kevin gritted his teeth, his eyes filled with venom. Dream on. I won't give you a single cent over 2 million. If you want to sue, then sue. The legal team at Solaris will drag this out with you to the bitter end. Let's see how long an ant can fight a boot. You have no money, no power. What are you going to fight me with? He pulled another divorce document out of his briefcase. This one was far more professionally drafted, with rigid clauses entirely in his favor. Sign this, take the 2 million, and disappear. Otherwise, you'll walk away empty-handed, and your reputation will be in tatters. I will let all of high society know you are a loose woman who ran away from home for another man, a gold digger who betrayed her family. Kevin's vileness had hit rock bottom. He wouldn't hesitate to use the dirtiest tricks to push me into a corner, but he was wrong. I was no longer afraid. I picked up the divorce papers he just handed me, skimmed them, and ripped them in half, then into quarters, right in front of his face. The sound of tearing paper was music to my ears. I threw the scraps right at him. I won't sign. See you in court. And make sure you mentally prepare yourself to face the public. I turned to Mia. Mia, see our guest out. Mia immediately stood up, opened the door, and pointed outside. Get the hell out. My house doesn't harbor cowardly trash. Kevin stood up, brushing the paper scraps off his suit, glaring at me with immense hostility. Fine. Remember this. You will regret today. He stomped out, slamming the door behind him. The room returned to silence. I slumped into the chair, feeling like I had just fought a battle to the death. My limbs were shaking from the adrenaline, but my heart felt incredibly light. I had dared to stand up. I had dared to slap the face of the man who trampled on me. Mia sat down next to me and grabbed my hand. You did amazing, Chloe. I have so much respect for you. But his threats. I'm a little worried. What if he actually does it? He will, I affirmed confidently. Kevin is petty. He'll use every dirty trick in the book, but I'm already prepared. I took out my phone and called my lawyer. Attorney Quinn, prep the lawsuit, and prepare our PR counter-strategy. The war has begun. Exactly as I predicted, Kevin didn't let me rest for even a day. The next morning, the moment I opened my eyes, Mia ran into my room in a panic, holding her tablet. Chloe, this is bad. You're all over the news. I took the tablet and scrolled through the social media blogs and tabloid sites. Glaring headlines assaulted my vision. Wife of Solaris executive abandons sick husband for 7 days to run away with mystery lover. The truth behind the high society marriage. Wife cheats, husband suffers. Secret lover of Solaris billionaire's wife revealed. Below the articles were clumsily photoshopped, malicious images. They took a photo of me with a male friend from college and blurred his face to make it look scandalous. The content of the articles was a blatant fabrication. They claimed I was a party girl, constantly neglecting my family, culminating in my 7-day disappearance to vacation with a lover, while Kevin stayed home sick, desperately searching for me. The public immediately erupted. Comments cursing and insulting me piled up rapidly. What a slut. She had it too good and went crazy. Her husband is rich and handsome, and she still cheated. She doesn't know how good she has it. Trash like her deserves to be ruined. Reading those words felt like 1,000 needles piercing my skin. Even though I was mentally prepared, the cruelty of the internet still left me dizzy. Kevin had hired a dirty PR firm to attack me, aiming to turn me from the victim into the villain. This gave him an excuse to divorce me without splitting the assets, while preserving his image as the poor, heartbroken husband. That bastard. How could he just blatantly lie like this? Mia angrily threw a pillow on the floor. Calm down, Mia. I set the tablet down and took deep breaths. He wants me to panic. He wants me to get scared and back down. I'm not falling for it. I called Attorney Quinn. His voice on the other end was calm as ever. Did you see the news? Don't worry. I anticipated this move. We are launching the counterattack right now. Do it. I trust you. 2 hours later, a completely different narrative began spreading online. It wasn't anonymous, sensational blog posts, but an official press release from my legal representation. Attached to it was ironclad, undeniable evidence. First were my medical records from the private clinic where Mia's doctor friend worked. The files clearly stated I was admitted with a high fever and severe physical exhaustion, requiring continuous IV fluids for the first 3 days of my disappearance. There were photos of me lying in a hospital bed attached to an IV, my face hollow and pale. This completely shattered the rumor that I was on vacation with a lover. Next was security footage from Mia's condo lobby. It showed Mia supporting me as I limped inside, utterly exhausted, on the night I left the airport. The timestamps matched perfectly. And finally, the most fatal blow. Attorney Quinn vaguely hinted that we had evidence proving the husband was actually absent from the state the entire time his wife was severely ill. He didn't release the photos of Kevin's affair, yet he was just baiting the hook to see the public opinion shift. The wind began to change direction. The people who were cursing me moments ago started getting suspicious. Wow, she was actually sick. She looks terrible. The husband said he was desperately looking for her, but she was in a hospital in the same city? Something's fishy here. Maybe the husband is the one with the problem. Kevin must have been losing his mind on the other side of the battlefield, but he didn't stop. He launched a second attack, infinitely dirtier. That afternoon, another rumor exploded. Wife of Solaris executive used to be a sugar baby to pay for college and art school. They spread rumors that my family was dirt poor, buried in debt. That I had to sleep with an older, anonymous sugar daddy to get money to pay off the debt and afford my education. They claimed Kevin was scammed into marrying a reformed escort. This rumor struck directly at my character and my past. It was toxic because it was incredibly hard to disprove. The truth was, years ago, I had received financial support from an anonymous benefactor. That person sponsored my tuition for 4 years of college and a short-term study abroad program. I never met the man, only knew him as my benefactor. I was stunned. How did Kevin know about this? And how could he twist the truth so despicably? My phone rang endlessly with unknown numbers, definitely tabloid reporters hunting for a scoop. I turned my phone off and curled up in the corner of the room, feeling a creeping sense of helplessness. I could prove I was sick. I could prove Kevin cheated. But how could I prove my innocence in the past when even I didn't know who my benefactor was? Mia sat next to me, hugging my shoulders. Chloe, don't be scared. The innocent have nothing to fear. But I don't know who that person is, Mia. What if he really did have bad intentions? And now that Kevin has dug this up, what do I do? Just as I was reaching peak panic, the doorbell rang. I jumped. Was it the press tracking me down? Mia looked through the peephole, then turned back, her eyes wide with shock. Chloe, it's your father-in-law. Mr. Mitchell. I froze. My father-in-law? Richard Mitchell, the CEO of Solaris Corporation, the most powerful man in the family, the man Kevin feared above all else. He was supposed to be on a business trip in Europe. Why was he here? And what was he here for? To scold me for bringing shame to the family, or to force me to sign the divorce papers? Open the door, I said shakily. I had to face him anyway. The door opened. Mr. Mitchell walked in. He was a tall, imposing man, his hair entirely silver, but his eyes were incredibly sharp. Following behind him was his assistant and Attorney Quinn. I looked at Attorney Quinn in surprise. He gave me a small nod, his eyes reassuring. "Hello, Mr. Mitchell," I said softly, bowing my head. Mr. Mitchell looked at me. His eyes weren't angry. Instead, they held a trace of profound pity. He walked over, placed a hand on my shoulder, his voice deep and warm. "You've lost so much weight. I'm sorry, Chloe. I came back too late." I looked up, utterly confused. "You're apologizing? To me?" Mr. Mitchell turned to his assistant. "Set up a press conference immediately. I will personally speak to those vultures." Then he looked at me and said something that left me completely paralyzed. "Let's see how my goddamn son dares to slander his own benefactor. The sugar daddy, he claims, was keeping you all those years ago, is me." Mia's living room seemed to spin. I stood rooted to the ground, my ears ringing, thinking I had misheard. The powerful man standing before me, the man I had respectfully called Dad for 3 years, the man whose stern distance always intimidated me, was actually the secret benefactor who changed my life. I looked at Mr. Mitchell, my lips trembling, unable to speak. Memories from 10 years ago rushed back. When my father died suddenly in an accident, leaving my mother and me with massive debts and the crushing burden of survival, my dream of going to art school seemed entirely extinguished. And then, a scholarship fund named Legacy appeared, covering all my tuition and living expenses with the sole condition that I had to maintain top grades. I always searched for the person behind that fund to say thank you, but all information was kept strictly confidential. Dad, why? Why did you help me? And why did you never say anything? Mr. Mitchell sighed, sitting down on the sofa, his gaze distant, looking into the past. "Your father and I were brothers in arms during the Gulf War. Back then, I owed him my life. When your father passed, I wanted to compensate your family, but I was afraid your mother's pride wouldn't let her accept it. So I set up that scholarship fund. The day you married into the Mitchell family, I was overjoyed. I thought my son would take over my duty to care for you for the rest of your life. Who would have thought?" He clenched his hand into a fist, the veins bulging on his wrinkled skin. The disappointment and rage were evident on the old father's face. "That rebellious bastard dared to smear your honor. He even dared to drag up an act of gratitude from the past and spin it into something so depraved. He isn't just humiliating you, he's humiliating his own father." Attorney Quinn finally spoke, his voice calm but resolute. "Mr. Mitchell, everything is ready. The press conference will begin in an hour at the Drake Hotel. We need to leave now to prepare." Mr. Mitchell nodded, standing up to adjust his suit jacket. He looked at me, his eyes unwavering. "Chloe, come with me. Today, I will get you justice. No one is allowed to bully Richard Mitchell's daughter-in-law, not even my own flesh and blood." I looked at him, tears welling up. Not tears of sorrow, but tears of immense gratitude. In my most isolated, desperate moment, the person who stood up to protect me was the person I least expected. The ballroom at the Drake Hotel was packed with reporters. Camera flashes went off continuously, as if trying to burn everything down. Kevin was there too. He sat in the front row, looking triumphant, with his personal lawyer beside him. He probably thought his father came back to clean up his mess, or at least to force my silence to protect the corporate reputation. When Mr. Mitchell walked in with me, the entire hall fell dead silent. Kevin froze. The smile vanished from his lips. He jumped to his feet, stammering, "Dad, why are you with her?" Mr. Mitchell didn't answer. He walked straight up to the podium, leading me behind him. He stood in front of the microphones, his eyes sweeping across the room. The sheer authority of the head of a massive corporation made everyone hold their breath. "I am Richard Mitchell, CEO of Solaris Corporation. Today, I stand here not as a businessman, but as a father, and as a friend." His voice boomed clearly. "Over the past few days, there have been many malicious, false rumors regarding my daughter-in-law, Chloe Mitchell. People said she cheated. People said she neglected her family. People said she had a dirty past and was kept by a sugar daddy. Today, I formally declare, all of it is a fabricated lie." The hall erupted in whispers. All the blood drained from Kevin's face. He tried to rush the stage but was stopped by his father's security detail. Regarding Chloe leaving home for 7 days, it was because she was heartbroken after discovering her husband was having an affair. Mr. Mitchell gave a signal. The large screen behind him instantly projected the photos of Kevin and Natalie in Cabo. The wire transfers, the intimate texts, the sound of camera shutters roared again. The reporters turned to Kevin, aiming their lenses at him like accusing arrows. As for the rumor about the sugar daddy, Mr. Mitchell paused, his voice dropping, full of emotion. That man is me. Chloe's biological father saved my life in combat. I sponsored her education to repay my debt to my brother-in-arms. I view Chloe as my own daughter. Yet, my idiotic son dared to use that to smear his wife's reputation, and his own father's. Mr. Mitchell turned to Kevin, his eyes burning with fury. Kevin Mitchell, get up here. Kevin stumbled up to the stage, his legs barely holding him. He kept his head down, not daring to look into his father's eyes or at the camera lenses. Smack. A resounding slap echoed through the room. Mr. Mitchell slapped Kevin so hard he staggered and nearly fell over. The entire hall gasped in shock. That slap is me disciplining you on behalf of your father-in-law. You are an ungrateful, disloyal piece of trash. I do not have a cowardly son like you. Mr. Mitchell pointed a finger right in Kevin's face, his voice shaking with suppressed rage. As of today, I am stripping you of your title as vice president. Get the hell home and reflect on your actions. And Chloe, if you want a divorce, I fully support you. You deserve a man 100 times better than this bastard. I stood beside him, watching Kevin clutch his face in pain, suffering total public humiliation in front of hundreds of people. In my heart, there was no lingering affection, only pity. He had dug his own grave with his own cruelty and stupidity. After that explosive press conference, public opinion flipped 180 degrees. The people who were cursing me earlier turned around to praise me as a long-suffering, loyal wife, feeling profound sympathy for my fate. Solaris's stock dipped slightly, but then rebounded due to Mr. Mitchell's decisive and transparent actions. But my war wasn't over. Cornered, a wounded animal becomes the most dangerous. The Cook County Family Court was packed in the final days of the year. My divorce trial with Kevin attracted massive media attention. Even though Mr. Mitchell was on my side, legally, Kevin held many assets in his own name, and he wasn't going to let them go easily. In court, Kevin looked haggard. He had a scruffy beard and dark circles under his eyes. He no longer had the arrogance of the past. Instead, he had a stubborn, calculating demeanor. He had hired a famous lawyer who specialized in billion-dollar divorces, determined not to give me the half of the assets I demanded. Your Honor, my client agrees to the divorce. However, regarding the division of assets, we have evidence showing that Miss Chloe did not contribute to the creation of this wealth. Furthermore, Kevin's lawyer hesitated for a second before playing his final trump card. My client currently has a responsibility to another life. Miss Natalie, Mr. Kevin's current girlfriend, is pregnant. The child is Mr. Kevin's. He needs to retain his assets to care for his child and prepare to marry Miss Natalie immediately after this divorce. This is a humanitarian reason. We ask the court to consider reducing Miss Chloe's share of the assets to ensure the child's welfare. The courtroom buzzed. Kevin lowered his head, trying to act the part of a responsible father, a flawed man trying to make things right. He knew the weak points of public sympathy, and he knew the courts often prioritize child welfare. He wanted to use this illegitimate child to force me into a concession, or at least drag out the process. I looked over at the gallery. Natalie sat there wearing oversized sunglasses, rubbing her still flat stomach, occasionally dabbing her eyes with a tissue. The illusion of a happy family forming was truly touching. Attorney Quinn turned to look at me, giving a faint smile. He stood up, adjusted his suit, and his voice rang out clearly. Your Honor, we fully respect the rights of the child. However, we have a crucial piece of evidence to present to the court directly related to this pregnancy. Attorney Quinn pulled a sealed envelope from his briefcase and formally handed it to the bailiff. This is the result of an amniocentesis DNA test, which we requested under the supervision of a forensic medical examiner pursuant to a prior emergency discovery order. Kevin's face changed. He whipped his head around to look at Natalie. Natalie also turned pale, her hands trembling so much she dropped her purse on the floor. It seemed they didn't expect us to act so quickly and secretly. In truth, I had the PI collect a hair sample from Natalie earlier for a preliminary match, but today's official legal result was the killing blow. The judge opened the envelope, scanned the results, and furrowed his brow. He spoke sternly. According to the medical examination, the fetus is currently 12 weeks along. Attorney Quinn immediately followed up. Your Honor, my client's husband, Mr. Kevin, only began a romantic relationship with Miss Natalie 8 weeks ago, exactly 2 months. This is proven by hotel records, flight tickets, and Mr. Kevin's own sworn deposition regarding when the affair began. Quinn turned to Kevin, his voice like iron. So tell me, Mr. Kevin, how does an 8-week relationship result in a 1-2-week pregnancy? Unless you have the ability to bend space and time, or that child is not yours. The courtroom erupted. Whispers and gasps echoed endlessly. Kevin was dead silent. His jaw dropped, staring at the paper in the judge's hand like he had seen a ghost. He turned to Natalie, his eyes shifting from absolute shock to ultimate fury. You lied to me. Natalie shook violently, her face drained of all color. She stammered, unable to form words. Kevin, I didn't know. Maybe the doctor miscalculated. Miscalculated my ass. 12 weeks and 8 weeks is a whole month difference. You dared to cheat on me? You dared to make me raise someone else's bastard. Kevin roared, lunging toward Natalie, trying to attack her right in the courtroom. The bailiffs had to struggle to restrain him. The scene was utterly chaotic and deeply tragicomic. The man who, a minute ago, was proudly declaring he needed money to raise his child, now discovered he was just a sucker, raising a cuckoo in his nest. This humiliation was even more painful than the slap his father gave him days prior. He had lost his wife, lost his honor, and now was brutally scammed by his own mistress. I looked at Kevin thrashing in the arms of the bailiffs, screaming and cursing at Natalie. I felt pity for him. A man who calculated his entire life, ultimately destroyed by the most pathetic calculations. That's not all, Kevin. A deep, commanding voice echoed from the courtroom doors. Everyone turned their eyes. A young man, tall and lean, with facial features similar to Kevin's, but more handsome and resolute, walked in. He wore an impeccably tailored black suit, exuding a poised and confident aura. It was Hunter, Kevin's paternal half-brother. Hunter's appearance made the courtroom atmosphere even more tense. Kevin glared at him, his eyes bloodshot. What are you doing here? Did you come to laugh in my face? Hunter didn't answer Kevin directly. He walked up to the bar, nodded respectfully to the judge, and then turned to Kevin with a mysterious half-smile. Brother, I didn't come here to laugh at you. I came to open your eyes. Did you ever wonder why a sophisticated girl like Natalie suddenly appeared right when you were getting bored with your wife? Why she knew all your preferences? Why she catered to your exact desires? Kevin froze, suspicion creeping into his eyes. What the hell are you talking about? Hunter signaled to his assistant. A video played on the large screen in the courtroom. In the video, Natalie was arguing with a heavily tattooed man in a loud bar. You took the money. Now get lost. Don't ruin my big plan. Once Kevin's divorce is finalized, I'll get his assets, and you can have as much as you want. Natalie's voice in the video was shrill and vulgar, completely different from the whiny, sweet persona she used with Kevin. The tattooed man scoffed, patting Natalie's stomach. Make sure you take good care of my kid. If that old fool finds out he's raising the kid of a gambling addict, you're dead. The courtroom was completely silent. The raw, filthy truth was laid bare with nothing to hide. Natalie covered her face, sobbing hysterically as she sank to the floor. Kevin stood there like a statue. It turned out it was all a play. He was just a puppet in the hands of a gold digger and her gambling addict ex. He had thrown away his loyal wife, defied his own father, and ruined his entire career for these people. Hunter stepped close to Kevin, whispering just loud enough for the two of them to hear, but sitting nearby, I heard every word clearly. I was the one who introduced Natalie to you, my dear brother. I knew you liked promiscuous women who stroke your ego, so I paid Natalie to approach you. I just never expected you to be stupid enough to fall so blindly in love with her that you'd actually try to marry her. Kevin glared at Hunter, his throat making a raspy, animal-like sound. You set me up. Why? Why would you do this to me? We're brothers. Brothers? Hunter laughed loudly, a bitter, resentful laugh. 10 years ago, when Dad had a stroke and was in a coma for 3 months, my mother dropped to her knees outside your mansion's gate, begging you and your mother for a loan for her heart surgery. She didn't dare bother Dad because she didn't want to affect his health. That's why she begged you. But what did you say? You hid it entirely from Dad and ordered your security to chase us away like stray dogs. You called us leeches. You left us for dead. My mother died in agony because she couldn't afford the treatment in time, while Dad lay there, completely unaware. Did you remember the word brother back then? Kevin's face paled. The dark memories of the past rushed back. Back then, he and his mother, Mr. Mitchell's first wife, had ruthlessly chased away Hunter and his mother, the mistress, while Mr. Mitchell was comatose. Hunter had harbored that hatred for 10 years, quietly working hard, building his own career, and waiting for this exact day. I swore in front of my mother's grave that one day, I would take back everything that belonged to her. And today, I did. You've lost your wife, lost your kid even if it was fake, lost your title, lost your honor. You have nothing left, Kevin. Hunter turned and walked away, leaving Kevin completely collapsed in the middle of the courtroom. He had no strength left to scream or curse. He sat slumped on the floor, his eyes hollow and empty. The destruction of a human being sometimes doesn't require swords or hammers. It only requires the truth, a brutally absolute truth. The trial concluded quickly after that. With undeniable evidence of Kevin's adultery and violation of marital vows, combined with Mr. Mitchell's support, the judge ruled heavily in my favor. I was awarded 50% of the marital assets, including the Lake Forest mansion, and a massive cash settlement of $100 million facilitated by Mr. Mitchell, forcing Kevin to liquidate his shares to pay me out. I walked out of the courthouse, taking a deep breath of the freezing Chicago winter air. Freedom. I had finally found my own sky, no longer living as someone's shadow, no longer having to read someone else's mood to survive. Hunter was waiting for me outside the courthouse, leaning against a sleek black luxury sedan. Seeing me walk out, he stepped forward and handed me a business card. Congratulations on winning your case. A beautiful victory. I took the card, looking at Hunter with complex emotions. Thank you for helping me expose Natalie. But I know you didn't do it for me. You did it for your revenge. I was just a pawn on your chessboard too, wasn't I? Hunter looked at me, a hint of surprise flashing in his eyes before turning into respect. He didn't deny it. He nodded frankly. You're right. I took advantage of your situation to take Kevin down. I apologize for that. But your design talent is real. I looked through the sketches you drew secretly in your study. They have a soul. He pointed to the business card in my hand. Stellar is the fashion label I just founded in Paris. I need a creative director with a breakthrough mindset and the refined sensitivity you possess. Chicago is too cramped and holds too many sad memories for you. Come to Paris. That is the sky, where you truly deserve to shine. I looked at the gold-embossed Stellar, Paris on the card. Paris. The city of light. The place I had dreamed of setting foot in since my college days, but had to put on hold because I got married. Give me some time to think about it. Of course. I'll be waiting for you in Paris. Hunter smiled. His smile this time didn't have the dangerous mystery of before. It was surprisingly warm and sincere. He opened the car door, got in, and sped away, leaving me standing at the crossroads of life with an incredibly tempting offer and a wide-open future waiting ahead. Hunter's car disappeared into the busy traffic, but his offer still echoed in my ears. Paris. A new sky. A new career. It all sounded like a distant dream for a woman who had just stepped out of the rubble of a marriage. But then I looked back at the business card in my hand, its gold lettering glinting under the weak winter sun like a magical invitation. I returned to the Lake Forest mansion, one last time. By court order, this house now belonged to me. Standing in the middle of the massive living room, the place that had witnessed so many nights of me staying awake waiting for my husband, so many cold dinners, and the ultimate humiliation on the day Kevin returned, I was surprised to realize I felt no lingering emotional attachment. No pain, no resentment, only emptiness and relief. This house was too big and too cold. It held too many memories I wanted to forget. I called a luxury real estate agent and listed it immediately. With its prime lakeside location, people came to view it and put down a deposit just 2 days later. They were a young, successful entrepreneurial couple. They looked at the house with eyes sparkling with hope for a future home. I smiled and silently wished them well, hoping they wouldn't follow in my footsteps. Holding the money from the sale of the house and the massive cash settlement from the divorce, I felt like I had never been so materially wealthy, yet never so spiritually lonely. I donated a portion of the money to a charity fund named after my late father. I sent another portion to Mr. Mitchell as a gesture of gratitude and apology. Even though he had stood by my side, I knew the shattering of this marriage was still a scar in the old father's heart. Mr. Mitchell accepted the money, but adamantly refused to keep it for himself. He told me he would use it to expand the Legacy Scholarship Fund, helping more brilliant, underprivileged students like I once was. "Just go," Mr. Mitchell told me during our brief farewell meeting. "Go and find yourself again. Don't worry about me." Kevin took a hard fall. Hopefully, it knocks some sense into him. And if it doesn't, that is his fate. I bowed deeply to him, my respected father-in-law, the greatest benefactor of my life. The day I left Chicago, it was drizzling. Mia insisted on driving me to O'Hare. The entire ride, she kept sniffing and crying, a far cry from her usual tough, fierce persona. "Who am I going to hang out with when you leave? Make sure you take care of your health over there. Don't become a total workaholic. If you see a hot French guy, just go for it. Life is long." I held Mia's hand, smiling to reassure her. I know. I'm going there to work, to live my life, not to run away. Once I'm settled, I'll fly you out to visit." At the International Departures Terminal, I looked back at Chicago one last time through the rain-streaked glass doors. This city gave me pain, but it also gave me growth. I had arrived here with a heart full of youthful dreams, and now I was leaving with a heart covered in scars, but more resilient than ever before. I took out my phone and dialed Hunter's number. It was the first time I had initiated contact since the trial. "Hello?" Hunter's voice came through the line, deep and calm. "I'm at the airport. My flight to Paris takes off in 2 hours," I said simply. The line was silent for a few seconds, then I heard Hunter's soft chuckle. "I knew you wouldn't disappoint me. Welcome to Stellar. I'll have someone pick you up at Charles de Gaulle." "No need. I want to get there myself. Send me the office address. I'll be there on Monday morning." I hung up, taking a deep breath. I didn't want to rely on anyone anymore. Not even Hunter. I wanted to walk on my own 2 feet, starting from zero in a foreign country. I rolled my suitcase through security. The sound of the passport stamp echoed with a decisive thud, like a period marking the end of the old chapter of my life. Goodbye, Kevin. Goodbye to the days of wasting away. Hello to the Chloe Mitchell of the future. Paris welcomed me with a rare, beautiful sunny winter day. The cold here was dry and sharp, not damp and miserable like back home. I rented a small attic apartment in the 13th arrondissement, where there was an expat community, to ease the homesickness during my first few days. On Monday morning, I arrived at the Stellar office precisely at 8 a.m. The company was located in a historic building near the Seine. It wasn't overly grandiose, but it exuded art and class. Hunter was already there waiting. Today, he wore a crisp white shirt with the sleeves rolled up, looking much more dynamic and approachable than the calculating man in the courtroom. "Welcome, our new creative director." Hunter shook my hand, his eyes shining with genuine joy. "This is your office. I had them prepare the best drafting tools and top-of-the-line equipment. I hope you like it." The room was spacious, with large glass windows overlooking the Eiffel Tower in the distance. On the desk were premium paints, stacks of top-tier silk fabrics, and a state-of-the-art computer setup. I touched the rolls of fabric. a surge of emotion rising within me. It had been 3 years since I was allowed to touch my passion so openly and respectfully. Thank you. I'll do my absolute best. Don't say you'll do your best. Prove it with results. Hunter reverted to his serious boss persona. Paris Fashion Week is in 3 months. Stellar is a new brand. We need a debut collection that makes noise and establishes our position. I'm betting everything on you, Chloe. The pressure weighed heavily on my shoulders, but it was also the fuel that ignited me. I threw myself into work like a moth to a flame. I ate and slept at the office, losing track of the days. Ideas that had been suppressed for 3 years now poured out like a flood. I drew, I cut, I sewed, I meticulously adjusted every seam. Hunter was a demanding but fair boss. He scrutinized every one of my sketches, pointed out flaws, and sometimes we debated fiercely to defend our aesthetic visions. But he was also my greatest support. He handled all the sourcing, HR, and marketing, so I could focus purely on creating. There were nights I worked until 2 a.m., collapsing on my desk in exhaustion. When I woke up, I would find Hunter's suit jacket draped over my shoulders and a hot coffee with a fresh, fragrant croissant on my desk. He didn't say much, just quietly cared for me with small, thoughtful actions. We maintained a proper boundary between boss and employee, between two expats in a foreign land. I knew Hunter had feelings for me, but I wasn't ready to receive them. The scars from my old marriage were still there, aching whenever the weather changed. I was afraid to trust, afraid to get hurt, afraid to gamble my heart on the wrong person again. Hunter understood that. He never crossed the line. He waited patiently, using respect and sincerity to slowly dismantle my defensive walls. One afternoon, while we were approving fabric swatches for the collection, Hunter suddenly asked, "Do you miss Chicago?" I paused, looking out at the Seine sparkling golden under the afternoon sun. "I do. It's where I lived for so long. But I don't regret coming here. Here, I get to live as my true self." "That's good." Hunter smiled. "I was just worried you were still holding on to the past. The past is a lesson, not a burden." "I've finished my lesson." I looked straight into Hunter's eyes, affirming it. The collection was gradually completed. I drew inspiration from the image of the modern American woman, resilient and unyielding, yet incredibly soft and alluring. I combined classic tailoring techniques with bold, avant-garde modern silhouettes. I named the collection Phoenix Rising, just like my own life, walking through the ashes to be reborn more brilliant than ever. The night of Paris Fashion Week, Stellar's backstage was as chaotic as a war zone. Models ran back and forth changing outfits. Makeup artists touched up powder, tailors adjusted final details. I stood in the center, directing everything with a cool head, but a pounding heart. This was the biggest gamble of my life. If I succeeded, I would have everything: fame, a career, validation. If I failed, I would be back at zero. Hunter stepped up beside me, placing a hand on my shoulder and squeezing gently. "Calm down. You've done beautifully. Believe in yourself." "I'm so worried, Hunter. The audience here is notoriously strict. Will they accept this fusion of styles?" "They won't just accept it. They'll be mesmerized. Trust me." The runway music started an ethereal mix of classical orchestral instruments and modern electronic beats, creating a haunting, captivating atmosphere. The runway lights flared. The first model stepped out in a modernized, structured gown with a long, sweeping train hand embroidered with a golden phoenix. The entire hall held its breath for a second. Then, sparse applause began, eventually spreading into roaring thunder. Each design appeared one by one. Every outfit was a story, a piece of art. The softness of the fabrics, the intricacy of the embroidery, the power of the modern silhouettes completely conquered the harshest fashion critics. When I walked out to take my bow with the models, the barrage of camera flashes blinded me. The applause was endless. I saw smiles, eyes full of admiration. In the front row, Pierre, the creative director of Chanel and a legend in the fashion industry, was giving me a standing ovation. Beside him, Hunter looked at me with eyes overflowing with pride and affection. In that moment, I knew I had won. I had conquered fate, conquered prejudice, and conquered my own fears. After the show, Pierre found me backstage. He shook my hand vigorously, speaking in heavily accented English. Magnifique, truly magnificent. You have brought a new wind to Paris. Your blending of classic techniques and modern edge is exquisite. Chanel would like to invite you to collaborate on our upcoming collection. What do you think? I was stunned, unable to believe my ears. Collaborating with Chanel? That was the dream of every designer in the world. I turned to look at Hunter. He nodded encouragingly. Thank you, Mr. Pierre. It would be my great honor. No, it is our honor to find a talent like you. Pierre handed me his card and left, leaving Hunter and me in an explosion of joy. Hunter walked over, holding a massive bouquet of vibrant red roses. Congratulations, Chloe. You did it. The Phoenix has taken flight. This was the first time he spoke to me so informally and intimately. A small shift in words, but it carried a massive shift in emotion. Thank you. If you hadn't believed in me and given me this opportunity, I wouldn't have today. I took the flowers, feeling my cheeks flush. I didn't give you an opportunity. I just helped you find your wings again. You were the one who flew on your own. Hunter looked deep into my eyes, his voice dropping low. Chloe, I know it might be a bit early, but I want to say that I truly admire you. Not just for your talent, but for your resilience and who you are. I am willing to wait until you open your heart. But please, don't push me away anymore, okay? I looked at the man standing before me. He had been by my side during my darkest moments, pulled me out of the mud, and gave wings to my dreams without asking for anything in return. My heart, which had been frozen for so long, suddenly skipped a strange beat. I need more time, but I promise I won't push you away anymore. Let's start as friends, as close colleagues. Is that okay? Hunter smiled the most radiant smile I had ever seen on his face. Okay. Friends is good too. As long as I get to walk beside you. The Parisian night was brilliantly lit. I walked beside Hunter on the cobblestone streets, my heart filled with faith in the future. I had found myself again, and perhaps I was beginning to find a new happiness, one that was peaceful and genuine. News of my massive success at Paris Fashion Week spread rapidly back to the US. Major fashion magazines stateside simultaneously reported on it, calling me the new pride of American design. I received countless congratulatory messages from old friends, even from those who had shunned me during the scandal. But among those hundreds of messages, one name made me freeze. Kevin Mitchell. I want to see you. I'm in Paris. The message was brief, but dripping with desperation. I didn't reply. I had no desire to ever see that person again. The past was asleep. I didn't want to wake it up. But Kevin didn't give up. The next afternoon, just as I walked out of the Stellar headquarters, a familiar shadow lunged forward, blocking my path. It was Kevin, but not the dashing, elegant Kevin of the past. Standing before me was an emaciated man with a scruffy beard. The suit he wore, though a designer brand, was old and incredibly wrinkled. His eyes were sunken, marked by the deep crow's feet of exhaustion and anxiety. Chloe, you finally agreed to see me? Kevin said, his voice raspy, his eyes holding a faint glimmer of hope. I took a step back, keeping a safe distance. My company's security detail immediately stepped forward, but I signaled them to hold. Why are you here? I asked coldly. Kevin stared at me blankly, likely stunned by my transformation. The woman standing before him today, in an elegant custom-tailored dress, with a chic short haircut and an aura of absolute confidence, was light years away from the subservient wife of the past. I came to apologize. I know I was wrong. I lost everything, Chloe. My dad fired me. He cut off all my funds. My friends shunned me. My partners turned their backs. I have nothing left. Kevin stepped forward, reaching out to grab my hand, but I yanked it away. That is the price you pay for what you did. Why are you complaining to me? I know I deserve it. But Chloe, I miss you. I realized I still love you so much. These past few months, living in isolation, I realized no one treated me as well as you did, Natalie. She was just a cheap gold digger. You were the only one who truly loved me. Kevin started playing the emotional card. He brought up old memories, our early days of marriage, trying to evoke my pity. He thought I was still the weak, easily swayed woman I used to be. Can you come back to me? We can start over. I swear I'll focus on building a real life. I'll make it up to you. Dad wants us to get back together too. He's getting old. He wants to see the family reunited. He even dragged his father into this to pressure me. How pathetic. I looked at Kevin, feeling disgust rise in my throat. He never loved me. He only loved himself. He sought me out now because he saw my success, because he wanted to use my status to rebuild himself, or simply because he wanted a safety net now that he had lost everything. Kevin, look me in the eye. I spoke with a voice of steel. The woman who loved you enough to die for you died the night you abandoned her at the airport. The person standing in front of you right now is Chloe Mitchell, the creative partner of Chanel, not your ex-wife. Kevin froze. Are you really that cruel? We were married for 3 years. Cruel. What right do you have to use that word? You were cruel to me when I was sick. You were cruel when you slandered me and accused me of cheating. You were cruel when you dragged my benefactor's name through the mud. Now you fail, and you come crawling back begging for charity? Sorry, my kindness isn't reserved for those who don't deserve it. I turned to the security guards. Please escort this man away. If he lingers around here again, call the police. Kevin panicked. He lunged forward and dropped to his knees at my feet, hugging my legs and wailing. Chloe, don't leave me. I'm begging you, I have no way out. Save me. The scene was pathetic. The man who once held his head so high, looking down on the world, was now kneeling, begging for leftover love. I looked at him one last time. There was no resentment in my eyes, only pity for a life lived so wrongly. Let go. Your self-respect is the very last thing you have left. Don't lose that too. I pulled my leg away and stepped straight into the waiting car. The window rolled up, separating me from Kevin's desperate screams. The car pulled away, leaving the dark past behind forever. I sat in the car, my heart still racing from the unwanted encounter. The image of Kevin kneeling haunted me not because I still had feelings for him, but because it was a stark reminder of the brutality of karma. My phone buzzed. It was Hunter. Are you okay? Security told me some creep was harassing you. His voice was full of worry. I'm fine. It was Kevin. He came looking for me. The line went quiet for a moment. I knew he would come. He's been lurking around Paris for days. Are you really okay? I'm fine. I handled it. Pick me up tonight? I want you to take me somewhere. Okay. Hunter took me to a small dock on the Seine. It wasn't one of the luxurious yachts packed with tourists, but a small, charming private motorboat. We glided softly over the calm water, gazing at the glittering lights of Paris at night. The river breeze blew wildly, messing up my hair, bringing a chill but also an incredibly refreshing feeling. Hunter cut the engine, letting the boat drift freely down the river. He brought out a bottle of red wine and 2 glasses. Drink a little to warm up. We clinked glasses. The wine was slightly tart on the tip of the tongue, followed by a sweet finish that smoothed out the tension inside me. Chloe. Hunter spoke, his voice deep and melancholic. He wasn't looking at me, he was looking into the dark water. About Kevin. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have let him get near you. You couldn't have stopped him. Anyway, I needed to face him one last time to end it completely. Hunter turned to look at me, his eyes filled with torment. There's something I've wanted to tell you for a long time, but I was scared. I was afraid that if I told you, you'd hate me, you'd despise me. I looked at Hunter. My intuition told me this was important. Tell me, I'm listening. Hunter took a deep breath, as if gathering all his courage. You know I approached Kevin for revenge, but did you know that from the very beginning, you were also part of my plan? My heart skipped a beat. I knew Hunter took advantage of my situation, but part of the plan from the beginning? What did that mean? I had been monitoring the Mitchell family for a long time. I knew Kevin didn't marry you for love. He married you because you were obedient, easy to control, and made a perfect shield. I also knew Kevin was a serial cheater. When I planted Natalie, I calculated that the next move was to pull you over to my side. I needed an insider to fully grasp Kevin's finances and weak points. And you were the perfect candidate. Hunter lowered his head, his voice choking up. I intended to exploit your pain, to turn you into the sharpest weapon to stab Kevin in the back. I calculated everything, except for one thing. What? I asked, my voice trembling. Except for the fact that I would fall in love with my own pawn. Hunter looked up at me, his eyes shimmering with unshed tears. The very first time I saw you, quietly tending to those rose bushes in the mansion's garden, looking so lonely and resigned, my heart clenched. I asked myself how there could be a woman so foolish and so pitiful in this world. Then, when you resiliently stood up to fight Kevin, I was completely captivated. The strength hidden beneath your fragile exterior floored me. He reached out and grabbed my hand. His hand was warm and shaking. Chloe, I am so sorry for having malicious intentions toward you in the beginning. I'm sorry for indirectly causing you pain. But the feelings I have for you now are absolutely real. I swear it, with the Sen as my witness. I love you not because you are Kevin's ex-wife, not because you are a talented designer, but because you are Chloe. Just Chloe. I looked at the man in front of me. His confession was like a knife slicing into my heart, but at the same time, it was the antidote. He had bravely spoken the ugliest truth, accepting the risk of me rejecting him, just so there would be no secrets between us. I pulled my hand back and turned to look at the Eiffel Tower glittering in the distance. You are very cruel, Hunter, I said softly. I know I am a terrible person, but at least I have the courage to admit I'm terrible. Better than hypocrites, who constantly preach about love but stab you in the back. I turned back to Hunter and gave a small smile. I am mad at you for treating me like a pawn, but I also thank you. Because of your chess game, I managed to escape that gilded cage prison. We're even. Hunter looked at me, stunned. Then joy exploded in his eyes. You forgive me? I didn't say I forgive you immediately. I said we're even. As for the romance part, I paused for a second to tease him. You have to prove yourself more. A confession on the Seine isn't enough to win over the creative director of Stellar. Hunter burst into a loud, booming laugh that echoed down the river. He poured more wine into my glass. Deal. I will spend the rest of my life proving it. Cheers. That night, we sat together. We didn't talk much about the past, nor did we make grandiose promises about the future. We simply enjoyed the peace of the present. The sincerity of two previously wounded souls had finally found harmony. Time flew by in the blink of an eye. It had been a year since I set foot in Paris. My life had settled into a stable, brilliantly colorful orbit. Aside from my busy work at Stellar and collaborative projects with Chanel, I spent my weekends traveling all over Europe. Hunter was always my reliable travel companion. We strolled down cobblestone streets in Rome, watched the sunset in Santorini, and skied in the Swiss Alps. Hunter kept his promise. He wasn't pushy. He never pressured me to accept his love. He stayed by my side as a soulmate, an older brother, a silent bodyguard. He remembered all my little quirks. He knew I liked my coffee black. He knew I got cold easily, so he always had a scarf ready. There were times I got sick from the changing weather, and Hunter dropped all his work to come take care of me. He clumsily cooked soup, mixed my medicine, and stayed up all night watching me sleep. Looking at his back as he dozed off on my sofa, a strangely warm feeling rose in my chest. It was the feeling of family, something I had craved and lacked for so many years. I also learned to love myself more. I took yoga classes, learned floral arrangement, and took up oil painting. I realized that happiness isn't something someone hands to you. It's something you create from within. When your soul is at peace, the world around you becomes gentle. One autumn afternoon, when golden leaves blanketed the Luxembourg gardens, Hunter and I sat painting by the pond. Chloe, what do you think of this piece? Hunter handed me a sketch he had just drawn. The drawing depicted a woman sitting under a tree reading a book. Sunlight filtered through the leaves, shining on her hair. Even though it was just simple pencil strokes, the peaceful aura and the faint smile on the woman's lips were incredibly vivid. It was me. When did you draw me? I'm always drawing you in my head. Hunter looked at me, his eyes as gentle as an autumn lake. Over the past year, have I kept my promise? Have I been patient enough? I looked at the drawing, then at Hunter. My heart fluttered powerfully. I realized I had fallen in love with this man, without even knowing when. I loved his kindness, his perseverance, and even his past scars. I put down my paintbrush and smiled. You are very patient, but I don't think I want you to wait anymore. Hunter froze, as if he didn't believe his ears. You mean? I mean, this painting is missing someone. I picked up a pencil and sketched a man sitting next to the woman, holding her hand tightly. There. Now it's perfect. Hunter looked at the drawing, then at me. The overwhelming happiness made him fumble like a little boy. He grabbed my hand and gently kissed my paint-stained fingers. Thank you, Chloe. Thank you for giving me a chance. The autumn wind rustled, and golden leaves fell like rain. In the middle of romantic Paris, two broken hearts had found each other, piecing together because I knew I wasn't walking alone anymore. Late that year, I received a FaceTime call from Mia. Her face on the screen was beaming. She immediately flashed a sparkling engagement ring on her finger. I'm getting married, Chloe. You absolutely have to come back and be my maid of honor. I laughed, sharing her happiness. Congratulations. I will definitely be there. Who's the lucky guy? It's the doctor who treated you back then. Fate got us. Couldn't run from it. We chattered excitedly about wedding plans for a while. Then Mia's voice dropped, her expression turning serious. Chloe, there's something I think you should know. About Kevin and Natalie. I hesitated for a second, then nodded. Even though I had let it go, I still wanted to know the ultimate fate of the people who had caused such a storm in my life. Tell me. Natalie's situation is tragic, Mia said. After the trial, her ex-boyfriend, the gambling addict, showed his true colors. He stole every dime she had saved up and ran off. She was heavily pregnant, got evicted by her landlord because she couldn't pay rent, and finally had to waddle back to her hometown to mooch off her parents. I heard people in her town gossip relentlessly. Her parents were so humiliated, they scream at her all day. She works as a cashier at a local grocery store now. She looks so ruined you wouldn't even recognize her. I sighed. You reap what you sow. Natalie used her looks and manipulative tricks to chase illicit wealth, and in the end, she lost everything. What about Kevin? Kevin hit rock bottom. After your father-in-law fired him, he became a raging alcoholic. He sold his cars and designer clothes to fund his drinking binges. He started bar fights and got beaten half to death a few times. Mr. Mitchell was so furious he publicly disowned him, forbidding anyone in the family from helping him, leaving him to survive or die on his own. I heard he's working as a security guard for a parking garage now. Drunk every day, everyone just shakes their head in pity. Hearing Mia's story, I didn't feel a single drop of vindication. I just felt a lingering sadness. Sadness for a life that once had everything but didn't know how to appreciate it. Kevin had a starting point that millions dream of, but his own selfishness and arrogance pushed him into the abyss. It's just fate, Mia. They chose the wrong path. They have to take responsibility for their own lives. Yeah, I just wanted to let you know. You just focus on living happily with Hunter. He's a rare, good man. I hung up and looked out at the gray Paris sky of late winter. A wave of relief washed over me. The ghosts of the past had finally dissipated entirely. I no longer resented them. I only prayed they would find some shred of peace in the rest of their lives, after paying off their karmic debts. Hunter walked into the room, carrying 2 mugs of hot chocolate. Seeing me standing blankly by the window, he wrapped his arms around me from behind, resting his chin on my shoulder. What are you thinking about? I just talked to Mia. Heard some news about Kevin and Natalie. Hunter didn't press further. He just tightened his embrace slightly, as if to transfer his strength to me. Everything is in the past. Now and forever. You only need to look forward. I'm right here. I turned around, burying my face in his chest, inhaling his familiar, warm, woody scent. Yes, I know. Paris near Christmas was as beautiful as a fairy tale. The streets were lavishly decorated with lights and flowers. Church bells rang out, and cheerful Christmas carols drifted into every alley. Hunter took me for a walk in Montmartre. It was freezing that night, with snow in the forecast. We held hands, climbing the steps leading to the Sacré-Cœur Basilica. From up there, we had a panoramic view of the city shimmering in lights. Chloe, do you believe in miracles? Hunter asked, his breath forming white clouds in the cold air. I didn't used to. But since I met you, I started believing. I smiled, squeezing his hand. Right at that moment, the first snowflakes began to fall. Pure white flakes gently landed on our hair and coats. The scene became breathtakingly magical. Hunter suddenly let go of my hand and stood facing me. He looked deep into my eyes, a look containing a whole universe of love. Then, he slowly got down on one knee in the freezing snow, pulling a red velvet box from his coat pocket. My heart raced. Even though I had vaguely anticipated this, when the moment arrived, I couldn't help but be overwhelmed with emotion. Chloe Mitchell, you have suffered so much trauma, and I was once a man with many scratches on my soul. We met when neither of us was perfect, but it was that exact imperfection that bound us together. Hunter opened the box. Inside was a simple yet exquisite diamond ring, sparkling under the streetlights. I don't promise to give you the wealthiest, most opulent life, but I promise to give you the most peaceful life. I promise to always respect you, support you, and love you with all my heart. Will you marry me, Chloe? Tears spilled from my eyes, rolling hot down my cheeks. I looked at the man kneeling before me. The man who patiently waited for me, healed me, and helped me find faith and love again. I will, I choked out. Hunter stood up, slipped the ring onto my finger, and pulled me into a tight embrace, lifting me up and spinning me around in the falling snow. We shared a passionate, sweet kiss, ignoring the winter cold, ignoring the world around us. That Christmas Eve, snow blanketed the sky over Paris, but inside my heart, a warm spring of flowers was in full bloom. I knew I had finally found the true, peaceful sanctuary of my life. We held our wedding the following spring in a small, rustic village in Provence, southern France, surrounded by endless fields of purple lavender. It wasn't noisy or ostentatious like my wedding with Kevin. There were exactly 20 guests, including Mr. Mitchell, Mia, who flew over with her new husband, and a few of our closest friends in Paris. I wore a wedding dress I designed myself. It wasn't a puffy princess gown, but a pure, simple white silk dress accented with delicate hand-embroidered patterns. Hunter wore a sharp cream-colored suit, a happy smile, never leaving his lips. Mr. Mitchell officiated the wedding. His hair had grown much whiter, but his spirit was still incredibly sharp. He looked at us, his eyes brimming with tears. I deeply regret what happened in the past, but seeing you two this happy today, my heart is completely full. Hunter, take my place, and take the place of your brother, to make it up to Chloe. Chloe is a good woman. You must cherish her. I know, Dad. I will use my entire life to protect her. Hunter squeezed my hand, looking at me with unwavering determination. We exchanged our vows under the canopy of an ancient oak tree. I, Chloe, take you, Hunter, to be my husband. I promise to share every joy and sorrow, to respect your career and passions, and to build an equal family filled with laughter. I, Hunter, take you, Chloe, to be my wife. I promise to never let you feel lonely, to always listen and understand you. I promise to be your most reliable companion on every path of life. There were no hollow, flowery words, only pure sincerity from the bottom of our hearts. Mia stood on the sidelines crying into a tissue, while her husband patted her shoulder to comfort her. The reception was cozy, held in the small garden. We ate, sang, and danced together under the moonlight. There was no pressure to entertain corporate VIPs, no need to keep up appearances, no need to play the role of the perfect couple. We got to be ourselves, laughing freely with our loved ones. On our wedding night, Hunter held me in his arms and whispered, "Thank you for coming to me. Today is the happiest day of my life." I buried my head in his chest, feeling his strong heartbeat. Me too. Thank you for giving me a real home. 3 years later, our married life was more peaceful and blissful than I could have ever hoped. We welcomed 2 little angels, Anna and Leo. Anna was the older sister, exactly like her dad, smart and calm. Leo was the little brother, like his mom, sensitive and artistic. Hunter wasn't like the patriarchal men I used to know. He didn't shy away from any task, from changing diapers and mixing formula to cooking and cleaning the house. On days when I was frantically busy preparing for a new collection, he happily stepped back, taking on the role of a stay-at-home dad, so I could work with peace of mind. Don't you mind that your wife is busier than you? I asked him once, seeing him bustling in the kitchen making porridge for the kids while I sat sketching designs. Hunter turned around and laughed. Mind what? My wife is brilliant, I should be proud. Marriage is synergy. Whoever is good at something handles it. You just keep shining on the runway and leave the home front to me. His unconditional support was the fuel that made my career skyrocket. The Stellar brand grew exponentially, expanding beyond Paris into other major global markets. One day, I received a formal letter from the Smithsonian Institution in Washington, D.C. They respectfully invited me to return to the U.S. to take on the role of lead costume director for a massive upcoming National American Heritage exhibition. This was a monumental event, gathering the nation's cultural elites. I held the letter, my hands shaking with emotion. Returning to my home country and contributing my talent on a national stage was a burning dream of mine. But looking at my 2 young children and my massive workload in Paris, I hesitated. You should accept it, Hunter said after reading the letter. But the kids, the company, we'll all go back together, Hunter decided firmly. It's been a long time since we took the kids to visit their grandpa and see your hometown. It's a good opportunity for them to know their roots. I can manage the company remotely from there. An opportunity like this doesn't come twice, Chloe. I looked at my husband, my heart overflowing with gratitude. He was always the one pushing me forward, always my most solid pillar of support. When our family touched down at O'Hare, emotions overwhelmed me. It was the same familiar, sweltering heat of a Chicago summer, but this time, I didn't feel suffocated. I returned with my head held high, walking alongside an amazing husband and 2 beautiful children. The National Heritage Exhibition was a resounding success. My American Spirit collection received a shower of praise from critics and the public alike. The garments retained deep cultural identity, but were modernized with exquisite refinement, touching the hearts of millions. At the International Design Awards ceremony held shortly after, I had the honor of being named Influential Designer of the Year. Standing on the podium of glory, holding the prestigious golden trophy, the bright stage lights shining on my face, I looked down at the audience. Hunter was sitting there, holding little Leo, with Anna and Mr. Mitchell sitting beside him. Their eyes looked at me, sparkling with boundless pride. I took a deep breath and leaned close to the microphone. I dedicate this award to my most cherished loved ones. Thank you, Dad, for always believing in me. Thank you to my 2 little angels, Anna and Leo, for being Mom's endless source of inspiration. I paused for a moment, looking straight into Hunter's eyes. And a special thank you to Hunter, my husband, my friend, my soulmate. Thank you for coming into my life, for loving me, and for mending my broken pieces. Without you, the Chloe Mitchell standing here today would not exist. The entire hall erupted in thunderous applause. Hunter smiled and waved at me. In that moment, I knew I was the happiest woman in the world. Many years later, we had grown old together. Hunter's hair was streaked with silver, and crow's feet had appeared at the corners of my eyes. We retired to a quiet garden estate in the Parisian suburbs, enjoying a peaceful countryside life, leaving our businesses for the younger generation to manage. One afternoon, Hunter and I sat drinking tea on the porch, watching a blazing red sunset. Do you still remember those 7 days you disappeared all those years ago? Hunter suddenly asked. I smiled, taking a sip of hot tea. Of course. How could I forget? It was the biggest turning point of my life. If I hadn't decided to turn off my phone and walk away that day, would we have what we have today? Probably not. You would still be the enduring wife, wasting away in that gilded cage. And I would still be the estranged brother, carrying a family vendetta. I held Hunter's hand. It was wrinkled now, but just as warm as it had always been. Those 7 days weren't just a disappearance. They were an awakening. I died once, so I could be reborn. And the greatest happiness of that rebirth was finding you. Hunter squeezed my hand tightly, his eyes looking at me as passionately as they did in the beginning. Thank you for being reborn, so I could love you. We sat together in the peaceful, fulfilling sunset. Life is a journey filled with storms and trials, but as long as we have the courage to step through them, to live true to ourselves. True happiness will always be waiting at the end of the road. Ladies and gentlemen, Chloe's journey from a freezing winter night at O'Hare Airport to the brilliantly sunny days in Paris is not just a testament to a universal truth. Endurance is never a metric for virtue, and blind sacrifice only erodes a woman's value. The lesson we want to convey through this story is, do not be afraid to let go of a hand that no longer holds any warmth, and do not mourn a gilded cage built only for the eyes of society. True happiness only comes when we dare to value ourselves first. Sometimes, you have to dare to disappear from the life of someone who is unworthy, so you can fully appear in a brilliant life of your own.